Yeah, she's online.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon,
Good,
scholars and students of today.
good afternoon. We can hear you. Just go on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Just go on.
My name is Regina Kamande. I'm a criminologist and a penologist at Masai Mara University. We have prepared a presentation paper, I together with Dr. Komo, a paper that is meant to interrogate or review the effectiveness of police reform, majorly on the recent merging of administration police service and regular police in Kenya. This is a case of Nakuru County. This paper, it has a 5 scope that is meant to explain the relationship between the conference and the dean and the sub-dean. And as we all understand that our dean is leveraging social humanity through research, innovation. And this paper has been prepared under the sub-theme of the Sustainable Development Goal number 16. So the paper will derive the history of police in Kenya, the command structure in Kenya, the merger of APS and regular police, and the effectiveness of these merge. As I had said, is that the sustainable development can never be achieved or can never be attained if the sub-goal or the sub-theme, that is number 16, that is peace, justice, and strong institutions, have not been achieved. We all know all the other things, or everything economic, social, it is anchored on a peaceful and justice institution. So we decided to interrogate the march that took place in 2018 because we have found some loopholes. I personally, I am a retired police officer, and I joined academic in 2017 when this march took place in 2018. So we try to ask ourselves, this marching happened. What has been the goodies? Has these goodies been of effectiveness? Have this been of significance to other achievement of the other that is sustainable development goal? So we found literature that explained that the sub-theme, that is peace, justice, and strong institutions, focus on promoting peaceful and inclusive society for sustainable development. We all witnesses what has transpired in the few weeks where peace and justice to some extent has been violated and compared to numbers of the Kenyans. So we start by asking ourselves, why is it important to review? Why are we interrogating this much, the reforms that have took place? So allow me to go direct to the point because of the time. We found it important that a review of police reform it is necessary as it will be able to promote peace, stability, and security, which is the founder or which is the foundation of everything else that can be done as far as achievement or attainment of sustainable development goals is concerned. We also found that police officers contribute critically sustainable development. Why? Because if we do not have, if we do not have police officers who are accountable, who are professional, who are well trained, we cannot have a society that that has order or that is law. And we know that a state that does not have lawful members or does not have lawful structure, its achievement of sustainable goals is to some extent will be crippled. So we also found that it is important to review so as to build the trust between law enforcement agencies and the community they serve. Police officers and security officers, they do not serve themselves. These are the people who work with the community. Actually, it's the community who serves them. If the community do not take information to them, they cannot get information. And as we know, you cannot talk your information to a person who does not trust. So we decided to review so as to examine what is the level of trust and confidence by the members of the public towards the police officer. So we start by those are some of the reasons. Some of the reasons as to why we interrogated this matter. So we started by asking ourselves, what has been the history of reforms are not new in our country. Reforms have taken place even before the pre-colonial, that is pre-colonial era, the colonial era, after the independence, all the presidency regimes that have been in our country, each president came with some aspect of reform in police with one agenda, that is sustainable development and economic development and growth. So as you can see, this is the history of police in Kenya. Since it started, we see that before the colonial, the Kenyans had their own way of how they could code their justice, how they could live in cohesion, and they had an elaborate system of cohesion. So that is before independence, after independence. So as you can see, these are the history of the police officer that has taken place, the margin. For example, like in the 1920, I have tried to highlight the major parts in this slide, but in the full paper, this is very well stated. Like in 1920, that's when we had the police, the unpoliced, and we had the police. That was the origin of Kenya police. And yes, I'm a AP, because that's how it is well known. That is administration, police, service. This where the two departments originated. The police and police. The police zone, it became the Kenya police, while the other one that was known as the tribal police, they are the one who became the administration police. As you can see, we have the roles of the police, and as I had highlighted earlier, this was before independence. They were used to collect the tax, to mobilize the labor, maintain the law and order. But you see, one aspect that you can see here, this was before 1982. That is the state of emergency. The police was still characterized with aspect of human rights acts. Yeah? So what we are seeing today is not something. But now, this paper is meant to give, we have given a good recommendation on how we can have a police, that is police department, which are free from human rights acts, where we shall have police officers who are executing their mandate without human rights acts. So as you can see, these now are the regimes of reforms during presidency. Right now, in President Kenyatta, you see there were no major reforms during this time. There were only that is This was after independence. There was Kenya police and the tribal police came, the administration police. There were no major reforms during the Kenyatta regime. Same case during Moi era, there were no much major reform, but most of the reforms came during the President Kibaki time of era, where after the Ransford report, it served as the basis of reforms. And these reports provided a recommendation, and one of the recommendations was the merger of the Kenya police and the administration police. And now this is where our questions start rising. The merge took place. Yeah? How effective was it in crime reduction? So that is a new structure after the reforms of the Kenya police, where we have two DIG, both report to the Inspector General. So that is the structure of the that is both the Kenya police and the administration police. Now, what are the effectiveness? The merger was meant to unwrap or to unpuzzle the questions that were there, the human rights abuse, the inaccountability by police, all such. But now, we see, or what we established, is that this police merge, contrary to the expectation, which was meant to manage or mitigate crimes compared to the crime and human rights abuse that was there before, that was not what was achieved after the merger. Because we see when the APS and when APS actually is the administration police officer who joined the Kenya police. I was one of them who were affected. We joined the Kenya police in 2018. But now, what was meant to be achieved was never achieved, because the reform came with initiative of the New Bakumi. The New Bakumi initiative did not fully achieve what it was meant to achieve. And we saw, even in some places, the New Bakumi member, could arrest, could still castigate the human rights abuse that was there before. So we saw in the paper that the merger focused more on infrastructure, on resources, on training the police officer, on equipment, that is innovation and ICT, occurrence book. Yeah? When you go to report your crime or a report, you make a report, it is no longer now written on the old OB that you used to write. It is typed in computer. But all this, all this did not achieve the main agenda, the main role of the police, that is mitigating crime, reducing the crime. The rate of crime and the rate of human rights abuse today, it is even higher compared to what was there before this. So as you can see, that was the contrary to the expectation. It was never achieved because the merger focused more on infrastructure, on training, on welfare, also on welfare, as you can see. That is, it did not evaluate, it did not focus on effectiveness, but it focuses on professionalism, logistics, operation, and development. So we, as scholars, this is what we have recommended, that the merger, this merger, we are not saying that it be broken or be thrown away. But if this merger, those who are currently in the office, if they can embrace what we have established, this merger can be more effective compared to what now we are getting today. And one of the recommendations, if we are given chance, because I know we shall publish our paper, we will be able to read and get this information, that if we can adopt, like this ACAR model that is goal-oriented, and our goal here is crime, the development, the economic, the social aspect. Of course, we cannot have a society which is free crime. Yeah, that we cannot have. But at least we can be able to mitigate, whereby we have police officers who are accountable to their action, and the members of the society who trust and have confidence in their security system. So when we talk of this INAUGURAL model, it focuses on attaining the goal, and here the goal is crime reduction, whereby, as you can see, it focuses on desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. When we talk of desire, we talk of whereby the community and the police officer, both of them, both parties desire to have a society which is crime less, or it has less crime compared to what we have. Because we have aspects where the members of the community have the information, have some intelligence, but because of the level of trust and confidence they have towards the police officer, they cannot take the information. On the other side, the police officers do not have the police officer, so we do not have the information. So when we talk about training the police officer, and the members of the community also have the knowledge on what crime is, what action amounts to crime, what does the rule say. Then we have the ability. Ability is the resources. Like now we are talking of innovation, we are talking of research, we are talking of technology. Our police officer needs to be well equipped. Yeah? We have seen several instances where the police officer is taught to maybe a certain environment, but they do not have enough resources. Yeah? The impact or the consequences is that we cannot be able to fully address and handle the crime that has taken place. When we talk of reinforcement, we also talk of a society which is ready and it is supportive to the security system, not just to be watching when things go bad and they are not there. So that is one of the recommendations. Then we have a community-oriented policing. Yeah, this is not Nyubakum, as we have seen that Nyubakum is very terrible. Yeah, I know even me and you where we live. Some of us, Nyubakum was meant to say that you should know the 10 neighbors on your right, on your left. That is east, west, south, and north. That's what Nyubakum was meant. So when we talk of community-oriented policing, whereby the community are ready to collaborate with the law enforcement agencies. Then finally we have community connection programs. Yeah? Community connection programs and development was meant, it is meant to prioritize the community engagement, the crime prevention, and accountability. Community, the ability to engage, crime prevention, that is the security, and even the community and the accountability. That each police officer, each person should be accountable to their action, and they should be able to explain, and if it is contrary to expectation, then the law to course. So that's all we have prepared. I can answer some. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina.
Hello?
Yeah, any question for Regina,
Hello?
Professor Colomba? Yes, take a few questions. Professor Colomba.
Thank you, Regina, for your presentation. It was very clear. Thank you very much, and I like your research on the police. I have one question for you. One time I had a case at the county commissioner's office, and while I was there, one of my relatives who accompanied me to the county commissioner was a cop. Not the police, not the administration, the other ones, what are they called? And she was there dressed in jeans, she wasn't in police uniform, so nobody knew she was a policewoman. So during the case, an administrative police officer came to talk to us, telling us, you can't do this, you can't do the other. And when the administrative police officer left, my relative says, who is she? I cannot listen to an administrative police officer. What do they know? So my question is, you've presented so well on the march and how it can help in reducing crime and all the rest of the things, which are good. But have you looked at how are these two functions behaving on this bed? Are they good bedfarers after the march? What is your take on that as a former police officer and as a researcher? Thank you.
Thank you. Allow me to answer that question. As you can see on this command center, yeah, we have the APS, yeah, and we have that is the DIG, that is the Deputy Inspector General, Administration Police Service. We have Deputy Inspector General, Kenya Police Service, Administration Police Service, yes, and the training, that is a vacancy. We do are taught our role on how to mitigate crime or how to maintain law and order. However, as you can see in this structure, administration police officer, their role is well stipulated. We have 4 departments. That is, like as you can see, we have people, that is administration police officer. One of their major roles is that is protection of infrastructure. Yeah, the protection of the infrastructure of the government. We have RDU, that is rapid border patrol. No, that is RDU. And then we have ASU, that is anti-stock theft unit. Yeah, and we have people, that is the protection of the infrastructure. So the members of the community.
Excuse me. Regina,
yes.
kindly answer the question directly in the interest of time.
Yes. Okay. So here, that's where is the margin of the administration police officer and the Kenya?
I didn't have that.
Both are police officers. Only that the members of the public sometimes have equally that, and especially those as well understood to understand the role and the duties of administration police officer and the Kenya. However, both are well trained on the meaning of law and order.
Thank you. It's all right. Lunch is overdue, actually.
Just one.
I don't know. One more question. So, Regina, one more question.
Thank you, Regina, for that presentation. And I think Prof's interest was on, because she's looking at the effectiveness of the police reforms and the functions of the National Police Service. It goes beyond, as much as it goes beyond law and order. Basically, that still remains to be the key function, because the moment we mention about the National Police Service, what we see is crime management as well as law and order management. Now my question goes to Regina, and I'm just curious about this merging. How effective has it been? Can we see a reduction in the number of crimes? Because of interest to us is, has it helped in any way to reduce the crimes that we tend to see? Number 2, of course, this merging, it didn't introduce the community policing as per se, because the community policing has been there in practice. Rather, it came to enhance it. So in your study, did you find out that now the merging was the time when this community policing initiative was introduced, or it has been there, and then now it was enhanced as a result of that merging? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just to answer your question, Regina,
Let me go direct to
just to add on, Regina, I need to answer the second question for you. Now, when you are doing research, we know character is a process, all the way from training up to what you exhibit when you go to the community. Did you have an opportunity to review the curriculum that trains our police officers so that can create a better synergy when they are being merged, or they use the colonial curriculum, then we don't expect any change even when they get out of the society? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me go back to your question. As we all know, this magic was a new thing in the police. There before reform, it was known as Kenya National Police Force. It was not as. With the reform, it became the name changed from force. That is one thing. So, the mountain was not meant to enhance. It was a new phenomenon that was meant to bring the two parties, that is the police officer and the community, together or closer as an initiative of crime mitigation or crime reduction. What they focused more was the New Bakuni initiative. The New Bakuni initiative did not achieve what it was expected. Because those who are New Bakuni initiative, the leaders of the New Bakuni took advantage and they even positioned themselves as officers.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you. So, is your question answered? Regina? Yeah, we will. Those who are asking questions, they'll get in touch with you. Thank you for your presentation. We really appreciate. We have one more presenter, that is Mr. Lumadede, but we are pushing his presentation to afternoon. I know he has another presentation in the next session. So he's going to present both of them, one after another. So I want us to break for lunch. And I'm told the meal cards are in your bags. Just check. So after lunch, those who will be presenting, we are going to pitch our work. That is, you use exactly 5 minutes, and there will be no questions. The questions will be asked at the end of all the presentations in order to save on time and have as many of us presenting. So that if we are not able to complete all the presentations today, we can push those others to tomorrow. Thank you very much. Let's go for lunch. God bless you.
To present the two papers. The first paper is titled Breaking the Criminogenic Cycle, Exploring Parental Influences on Juvenile Delinquency in Nairobi and Mombasa counties. Both papers are papers in regard to juvenile delinquency, and they are part of they are part of the thesis. So they are the objectives of the thesis. The first is on parental influences, and the next is on neighborhood characteristics. So on parental influences, juvenile delinquency has been on the rise. Juvenile delinquency is defined as the illegal acts that are committed by someone below the age of 18 years old. So juvenile delinquency has been on the rise, and especially from we have statistics in Kenya from 2007 to 2019. After that, we don't have statistics, a comprehensive survey that has been done on juvenile delinquency. And up to 2019, where we have statistics, there has been a steady rise. In fact, from 2018 to 2019, there was a rise of about 2.5% from the rate that was there in 2018. So there is the rise, and currently we see the sprouting of gangs, especially in the disadvantaged neighborhoods, such as Kayole and those kinds of neighborhoods. And because of this, it necessitated to do this research. Now, there has been, of course, some researches that have been done in regards to juvenile delinquency, but even with those researches, we still see a rise in delinquency. And we know juvenile delinquency is costly, because when these children are engaged in criminality, it means they are derailed from their future, or even rehabilitating them becomes expensive to the state and to the society. So because of this, it points to maybe inefficacy of the measures that are there, or maybe there was some kind of misdiagnosis, or there is scanty analysis of this security problem. So because of this, it was imperative to do this research, and it was imperative for this paper to find out what are these parental influences other than what has been studied. What has been studied mainly is parental structure, family structure, and parenting style. That has been overstudied. So for this research, we went now further to look at other things such as parental criminality and the parental attitudes towards antisocial behavior. The hypothesis that guides this paper is that there is no significant relationship between parental characteristics and juvenile delinquency in Kenya. We know these are the people that are going to benefit from this research: the government, the research community, the educators, from the knowledge that we get from the findings of this research. The methodology is a concurrent nested design. That is the approach that will be taken. And in this concurrent nested design, it will have, because it is nested, it means the qualitative bit is nested in the quantitative bit. And the quantitative bit will take the approach of let's call it, not a correlational. I'll remember and then tell you. The area will be Mombasa and Nairobi counties, and I'll tell you why I'm taking Mombasa and Nairobi counties. It is informed by the Boston institutions, and because in my selection of the sample, I wanted to have learners who have been engaged in serious violations, those who have been engaged in minor violations, as well as those who have been engaged in, who have not been engaged in violations, so that I can compare those groups. So we targeted 400, I targeted 400, and out of the 400, I managed to get 360 people to answer the question. This is the population of children in Kenya, 24 million. The target is 2.98 in the 2 counties, and then the accessible was 235. The age that I targeted was 15 to 17 years old. And I used this formula proposed by Israel, and it was disproportionate to stratify something. Mombasa 200 and Kiambu 200. In this 200 in each county, 100 would be non-delinquents, and 100 would be those ones who are violations. Serious violations and minor violations. Serious violations is the postal institution. They take those children who have done serious violations, and then minor violations is the probation. So I'll use a questionnaire, interview, schedule. I did the reliability. The reliability was done in Kakamega County, which also has a postal institution. There are only 3 counties with a postal institution in Kenya. Then the main method of analysis is logistic regression. All these ethical considerations were taken care of. Let us go to the findings. The response rate, as I've told you, is 90%. And the distribution of respondents by age, that is a distribution. Let me go to what the gist. First of all, in analysis of the biodata, I wanted to first find out what is the relationship of this delinquency with whom the child lives with. And you can see from that analysis, when it is both the mother, the red is a delinquent, that is a line showing the delinquent, and the yellow one is a line showing non-delinquent. So for both mother and father, there is the non-delinquent, the delinquency is lower than the non-delinquent. But when it is the father alone with a child, delinquency is higher. When it is the mother alone with the child, delinquency is lower. And then I think that also challenges the popular notion that, you know, when you have single mother, there will be more delinquency. Actually, when it is a single father, there is more delinquency among the children. So I want to just take you to the cross-tabulation, and you can see this is cross-tabulation in relation to drugs. You can see for delinquents, these are non-delinquents and these are delinquents. Yeah, I don't know if this is selected, but these are delinquents. For delinquents, you can see 100% of those people using drugs always, those parents using drugs always are delinquent kids, compared to 0 of the non-delinquent who use drugs always. And even infrequently, 94% of all those parents were their kids were those who are delinquents, those who I got from the postal institutions and all that. So that tells you the use of drugs, and that goes to all the other drugs. You go to that, you go to crack, you go to cocaine, because there are places like in Mombasa where they will say that their parents are using those kinds of hard drugs. So I wanted to find out if the differences between this. Yes. Okay, thank you. So I wanted to find out if criminality, I'll be finalizing in the next few minutes. I wanted to find out if criminality, if there is a significant difference between those who are, the parents have been engaged in criminality compared to the rest. And I found indeed there is a significant difference with a 0.24, though it is a slight difference, but it is significant. This one is a Mann-Whitney U-test, which is used to compare two groups that are non-normal, they are not normal. So parental attitudes as well, I've used the same criteria, and in comparison, I also got that there is a 0.39% difference with a less than 0.05 significance, which means that parental attitudes also of parents of children who are in Boston institutions and all those institutions, corrective institutions, are different from parents with non-delinquents. This first one is brief. This first one takes more time. The second one is just almost a repetition, which will take less time. Now, on the main objective of the study, which is guided by the hypothesis, which we were trying to look at the parental characteristics, which is parental criminality and parental attitudes towards antisocial behavior, if the two, which is now parental characteristics, can help predict criminality. And we find that indeed that model is significant. If you look at the model, it's 0.00, meaning that model is significant, and the model can explain 28% of the variance in delinquency, 0.28. And this Osmer-Lemeshow test, it helps to test, it's a goodness of fit test. And when it is above 0.05, it means that model is fit. So this is 0.11, which is above 0.05, meaning it is fit. And it also tells us that, let me go direct to what the important bit, which says this parental criminality, parental characteristics explains 7.2 times. It determines delinquency in that someone who has a parent who exhibits those poor parental characteristics is 7.2 times more likely to turn out to be a delinquent, according to the findings. So these are the suggestions that people are saying. Among the people that I also interviewed, I interviewed stakeholders who are dealing with children, like those psychologists in the Boston institutions, counselors in the Boston institutions, and they were saying that some of these things we have solved them when we improve the socioeconomic status, parental education. They also touched on parenting styles and parental mental health and all that. So the conclusion, there was a statistically significant difference in scores of parental criminality and attitudes towards criminality between the delinquents and non-delinquents. Then, the limitation of this research is that it was cross-sectional in nature, but if this research is to be improved, then it needs to be we need to adopt a longitudinal strategy. Then, I think with that we can go to the next paper. So the next paper was on neighborhood characteristics on juvenile delinquency. Let's go to the next. The background, I've already touched on that, touched on the statement of the problem. The hypothesis here is that there is no significant relationship between neighborhood characteristics and juvenile delinquency in Nairobi and Mombasa County. the guiding theory is social disorganization theory. On methodologies, the same methodology I used on the other end. The population is the same as the one that I used on the other end. The sampling formula is the same. The sampling procedure is also the same. So that's led to the results. These results are the same. Here we also have a result that is going against the popular notion. The popular notion is that middle-born children are more likely to turn out to be delinquent. But in this research, I found out that last-borns are more likely to turn out as delinquent. The delinquent is a green one compared to mid-born children. Then, in terms of family structure, it agrees with the researchers that children from polygamous families are more likely to turn out to be delinquent compared to because you're seeing there, polygamous is the blue, and you see on the delinquent they are 62.7%. Here we looked at a number of things. One is availability of drugs, and in availability of drugs, indeed there was a significant difference between those who are delinquent and those who are not delinquent in terms of their neighborhood. That those who are delinquent, mostly there are places where they stay. There is easy access to drugs. Also, we looked at availability of neighborhood gangs, and there was a significant difference between the two populations. At the same time, on neighborhood disadvantage, there was a significant difference. In neighborhood disadvantage, we are talking about how the facilities are, the availability of things like hospitals, and those kinds of things. And indeed, there is a difference between those children who are delinquent and those who are not delinquent in regard to where they come from. Then, also when I conducted the logistic regression, the model was significant, and it explained 10.5%. It explained 10.5%, and that was around 2.1. A person is likely, a child from a neighborhood that is disadvantaged or has characteristics that are facilitating criminality are 2.9 times more likely to turn out to be delinquent compared to that. I think that is it, and these are the recommendations that were given: education opportunities, community infrastructure, community policing, and doing away with drug availability in those places. And also this one, the conclusion is that there's a statistically significant predictive relationship between neighborhood characteristics and juvenile delinquency as seen in Nairobi and Mombasa counties, and those are the policy recommendations. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let's applaud the outgoing presenter. He was last in the other program. We had agreed that we would take questions later in the interest of time. I'll mention my name. Kimara Koni is my name. So we are getting into what should have been the afternoon session. now. And we have 11 of us doing the same. We'll be doing a bit of alterations because we have students who had been booked for the online presentation, and a few of them are likely to be ready.
Somebody is required in those four, Dr. David Odhiambo, Wanina, Masimo Lilo. If you are here in the wrong place, go to room 204 downstairs. Thank you.
Thank you. So we still do a bit of change. Ruth was supposed to present as the first one here, but we are doing Rufo does the first one because he is also coordinating the online classes. I mean, not classes, the online presentation leads to online classes. Then we shall have Ruth come in. Ramali has already done his two. So we want to find out whether the rest are here. Rebecca and Dr. Wickley. Thank you. Then Mbuvelo here. It's online. Then we have then we have Raphael. Raphael is here. Oh, thank you. Then we have Dennis Ongeri. Thank you. Then we have Alex. Is Alex with us? No, there's one Dennis Musoti. Then Alex. Then Ibrahim Molinge with Megaro, yes. And finally we have Kemuto. Thank you. So we are all present. I want to ask all of us to note the presentation in which you have a question and write it down so that we can have a chain of the 5-minute presentations, after which now we'll be able to pick the questions. If we do that, we will be able to finish the presentations and not push them to tomorrow. It's likely to save us a minute. So, Rufo, you're welcome. It's your turn.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Rufo. I teach in the Department of Social Sciences here at Chuka University. And my title is Ownership and Control of Assets among Social Cash Transfer Beneficiaries in Marsabit County, a household analysis. Now, this is part of my PhD work, though it's just a subtitle of the whole work. I'm dealing with the cash transfer programs, trying to develop a socioeconomic model, or I'm calling it graduation model, where these beneficiaries, people who receive cash transfer from government and from private organizations, at some point, it should not be continuous. They need to be stopped. They need to exit the program. Now, the reason why I'm presenting the ownership and control of assets is something that came out clearly when I was in the pilot study, where I realized that beneficiaries of cash transfer programs, they get money every month, but managing those resources was a bit problematic. And actually, it was one of the measures that initiate their exit from programs. So, cash transfer programs have been adopted globally to caution vulnerable and poor households. The they contribute towards building households' resilience and stimulating investments in productive assets. And my focus is specifically on hunger safety net program. And my focus is on hunger safety net program, which is one of the cash transfer programs in Kenya. Under the umbrella of Inua Jamii, there are around 4. And it is actually implemented in 8 counties by the government. So I'm working closely with the National Drought Management Authority and the Hunger Safety Net Program. Now, evidence of food security and asset accumulation are the most used indicators to exit households from this program. So I said, the whole program is about exiting. I give you money, but at some point you exit to avoid what we call dependency syndrome. So therefore, the program looks at how many assets, which kind of assets have you accumulated in your household after we have intervened. And therefore, there is positive information on the patterns of ownership and control of assets among the beneficiaries, who owns the rights, who in the households, who has the rights. And this actually informs or can inform policy. Now, methodology, I used analytical cross-sectional survey design, which is one of the highly used design in social sciences. My population are the Hunger Safety Net Program beneficiaries in Marsabit, a sample size of 50. A multi-stage and simple random sampling were used. And in this particular subtopic, I'm trying to use t-test and chi-square and some qualitative data analysis methods. Now, direct to the results. This is just a snapshot of what I saw. Majority were female, despite it being a patriarchal community where they practice pastoralism. Majority are female, aged between 46 to 65. Shockingly, the education level, majority of the participants, 300 out of 350, have never stepped to any formal institution. They have never stepped. The majority are actually female. They are married. It's a mix of Christianity and is mostly. They're also in size. Again, you can see majority. They're also in size comprised of 6 to 10 people in that household. Type of land, tenure. It was individual, communal land, majority. Now, I did a paired test of productive assets. So again, as I repeat, the reason I am focusing on this productive asset, it is because it is one of the indicators of exiting them. So, land size, you can see before the intervention, before the cash transfer program, people owned land, and of course, even after the intervention, people owned land, but land use increased significantly after enrollment, and you can see even the statistical value. Then commercial houses increased slightly, but not statistical. They did not have any impact whether a household can exit a program or not. Then machines also remained the same at a p-value being more than 0.05 at a 95 confidence level. Then livestock significantly reduced. And actually, from the qualitative research, livestock significantly reduced because of the droughts and the floods, which I was calling them as a double tragedy. They have been facing droughts. At the same time, we have floods, then which kills livestock, among others. Now, power dynamics in the ownership of assets. These assets that we have I've mentioned. How is the pattern? What is the pattern? Now, land, clearly you can see that the husband, they are the majority in terms of ownership, okay? And when you talk of ownership, we were looking at the title deed. Whose name features in the title deed? That clearly depicts the ownership, the owner of the land. So husband clearly were entitled. Commercial houses, then commercial houses majorly were with the children, okay? Meaning children were able to value assets not within their households, okay? Then we have productive machines like cars, okay? farm machines. Again, you can see the number was with the husband. Then we have livestock. Majority who owned livestock were also the husband. However, we have small percentages of even the children, the wife, and also joint ownership of these assets. Then we have power dynamics in the control of assets. You clearly see that ownership and control, they are very powerful gender dimensions, okay? And therefore, the control is, yes, I can be owning the land, but I may not have control over it. So what came clearly from the findings is that even the small number of people in the household, including the children and the women, who were owning those various assets, when we came to control, it was totally different because men in the households took over completely of all the assets. These are just the snapshots of actually the first picture is on the planning, which involved research assistants. The reason why I decided to have these pictures is to show the picture of what is happening. Because women are really participating at the household level. But when it comes to making decisions, because control is about making decisions. Yes, I have the land, but can I sell it? Can I plant a certain type of crop? So they really participate in making decisions. The last one was just a focus group discussion where I decided to just have women. Then conclusion, land, livestock, commercial houses, and productive machines are the main assets owned by the Younger Citizen Program beneficiaries. However, land is mainly inherited. Land and livestock were more valued. Then women and children owned some assets, but the control of most assets was dominated by men in the households. And this one is actually, it corroborates some research that has been done by various scholars, including Martins in 2018, which actually denotes the issue of patriarchal system and the norms that exist in these rural communities, where despite having laws, you realize that, you know, customary laws or traditional laws, okay, they are more valued. For them, actually, they don't. When you go there and you are trying to talk about the law says, you can even be chased away. When I was doing my study, I had even 12 some security officers accompanying me. Then customary laws in Africa generally take precedence. They intensify gender inequality by giving men more property rights at the disadvantage of women. And actually that's a clear picture. Now, on the recommendation is actually the government should emphasize joint ownership. So what came out clearly is that despite these differences that more men are owning, you could clearly see some households, there's joint ownership. There's man and a woman owning an asset together with even the names being captured in their document. So therefore the government can consider or emphasize joint ownership of property to protect both men and women. Then we need to do advocacy programs to change the mindset of people, okay? Then the design of this social cash transfer program should align with the constitutional provision and also look keenly at the customary laws on property rights. And lastly, gender-sensitive policies should be formulated when deciding social cash transfer program, both at the targeting, implementation, and exit stages. So I'm looking forward at the end of all this, we will have policy briefs presented in the National Drought Management Authority, which is really supporting the study, and also the national, the Hunger Safety Net program. Thank you. This is just for, it was a pilot. I'm looking forward to have an in-depth analysis when it comes to the final study. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rufo. I have a suggestion. Give the presenters their question if you have. That can also help us be in control so that you also don't forget the question. It will also help us in making use of the little time that we'll have. Let's see if there is somebody who has a question they would wish reacted to by Boniface Rufo. we shall be still thinking about it. Yeah, but I think in the process of presentation, it's easier to have the question fresh. We can give the question, but then have the reaction thereafter. Let's clap for him. Thank you. So our next presenter is Ruth Mukada. Take the position, please, and use our 5-6 minutes so that we can keep moving. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Ruth Kata Manyara. I'm presenting a paper. The topic is cultural issues, cultural factors affecting utilization of guidance and counseling. Thank you. Yeah, the topic is cultural factors affecting utilization of guidance and counseling services among national schools, students in Meru and the Rakanidi counties. The supervisor of this was Dr. Nyaga. Guidance and counseling services are vital for national school students because they help address emotional, emotional, economic, psychological, and as well as spiritual problems. And Kenya's national schools, is meant to address these behavioral, social, and psychological problems. For this one, will enhance their performance in schools. The statement of the problem: the students in national schools face challenges as a result of the cultural shock from their diverse backgrounds and met expectations, and this leads to difficulties in interpersonal relationships, academic performance, and also adjustments in their new environments. And therefore this study meant or aimed at exploring the cultural factors affecting the utilization or the uptake of guidance and counseling in their national schools. And the study focused on the 4 national schools in Meru and the Rakanidi counties. The objective of the study is to find out the cultural factors
affecting utilization of guidance and counseling services in national schools in Meru and Tharaka Nithi counties. The methodology of the study used descriptive survey research design, which focused on the students' cultural background and the schools within the two counties. One was Meru School, St. Mary's Girls in Meru School, Chogoria Girls and Ikum Boys in Tharaka Nithi County. The target population was 3,702 participants, and this encompasses the 4 guidance and counseling teachers in those national schools as head of departments, and then 3,694 students. The data was collected through questionnaires, which were then analyzed, and the findings of the study, that is cultural factors. One was identified was the deep-rooted cultural beliefs regarding school guidance and counseling services. And then the findings for students and teachers are on the table. Ethnic dissimilarity between the student and the teacher counselor was also another element. Religious traditional beliefs regarding guidance and counseling, taboos and myths regarding guidance and counseling, and then the table shows the clarification of how the respondent, how those factors affect as far as embracing the counseling service is concerned in those schools. Then conclusion, the influence of taboos, myths, and also cultural beliefs. That is the summary. Then conclusion. One conclusion is that cultural factors such as ethnicity that brings about differences in cultural diversity, deep-rooted cultural practices, community beliefs, taboos and myths may be prohibiting students from seeking guidance and counseling services in national schools in Meru and Tharaka Nithi counties. Therefore, with this view, one of the recommendations is that there is need to sensitize students to avoid cultural inclinations such as ethnicity, deep-rooted cultural practices, community beliefs, taboos, and myths that may hinder students from the help-seeking behavior. The second recommendation, guidance and counseling, remain an examinable subject in schools, both national schools, in all national schools, and of course, secondary schools, and if possible, even primary schools. This would probably increase the level of the uptake of guidance and counseling services in those schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Let's give Ruth a better clap. That's quite a sensitive area in counseling, and maybe we'll ask our questions when time is ripe. Now we will take a break from our the present students here because we have an online waiting presenter, and this is Rusabe Nafuma, and they will be presenting on a topic in the group of education, philosophy, and climate change. And I think in that case we will have to do her questions immediately because we may not have to call her back in session after she is done. So I kindly request if we'll have a question, let's just bring it up in the course of the presentation so that we close that chapter. So if we have to get to other persons in the online. Good afternoon, Rusabe. Hello, Rusabe. It's not yet connected. Hello, Rusabe. She is. Hello, Rusabe. So in case she is not set, there's it is shielded. 1 minute. So if she's not ready, we have another one for online for Sophie Okwena. And maybe I need to explain why we are asking them to come here. There is no other provision for the online except in this room. So with that understanding, we will give them the chance. But if they are not ready, we could pick up our, they are not ready. Sophie is ready? Okay. Sophie Okwena, good afternoon. Sophie Okwena, how are you? So maybe you could do a test and tell them when they are really ready, it will be better. Thank you for your patience. So we will move to our next presenter in here. This is Rebecca Deche. Rebecca is in. You're welcome.
Welcome everyone. My name is Rebecca. remains, what are these laws effective? That is just an overview, so we can go to the next slide. So what are these environmental crimes that I'm talking about? So they are illegal acts that harm the environment. You may be here and you're asking yourselves, why should I be concerned about this crime? So allow me to give you just a short story. In INAUGURAL village, that is in Changamwe, Mombasa County, there was a factory that was put in place, a lead acid recycling factory. So they promised jobs, they promised to develop the community, but they did not tell the villagers that they are going to deposit waste in that village. So when the villagers realized they were already suffering from lead poisoning, even 20 people were reported dead as a result of that poison. So we can see these crimes have adverse effects, and you may not be a victim now, but you can be a victim in future. So there is need to address them. There's also some statistics done by UNICEF that they showed that 40% of people in Kenya do not have access to clean water and sanitation. That shows that we as Kenyans, majority of us, we can suffer from illness and even die due to the same problem. Just an overview showing that we have several laws put in place, and there are just a number of them. There are so many of them. The question is, are they effective? There's also a right under our constitution. We have a right to a clean and healthy environment. There was a court order done by the Environment and Land Court that was recently, I think in May. However, we can see this order, it was all over media that it was not enforced. The court ordered 3 clubs and 1 church in Mirema Estate in Nairobi to be closed due to noise pollution. But at 19th, this order was not enforced, showing clearly that we have a problem in implementation and enforcement of these laws and orders. That is just another. So effectiveness of a law, we simply means, has the law achieved its intended policy objective? For it to be effective, it must achieve that intended policy objective. So we are going to look at these laws that we have, are they effective? So in my analysis, I found that we have the laws, however, they are not effective. The enforcement agencies, especially NEMA, in INAUGURAL village, that case, NEMA gave directives. However, we can see that factory continued operating at night. They were given to close temporarily, but they were operating at night, meaning that we have a problem in enforcement. We also lack punitive laws, like, let's say you are supposed to have a license that is worth 100,000, then you are taken to court due to you don't have that license, you are only fined 20,000. That makes it worthwhile for me not to have that license, to do that crime, since I can pay that fine. It is so simple, like I can pay that fine. So how do we improve these laws? Due to time, we'll combine that with the recommendations. So we can have an online website. This is to encourage community participation. You know, we only have around 120 environmental inspectors. They cannot be all over so that they can know where this crime committed. So if we have, like, let's say, an online website, a well-developed and monitored website, where like the Gen Zs who are well-versed with the internet, they can report these crimes and then they are followed up. That will help us address them much more quickly and easier. We can also invest in the enforcement agencies, since they lack that capacity. We can make sure that we have effective enforcement of the laws that we have at hand. We can also try and make sure that we have a workshop, and we can also have a platform to encourage transparency and accountability. We cannot keep a blind eye to the fact that enforcement of these environmental laws, there's a lot of corruptions. So let's say if these crimes, if a crime has been committed, if it is posted and people are able to follow up, they will not take that bribe or something like that. Just a conclusion, I leave us with a quote by Jane Goodall. She said that we all have a responsibility towards the environment, and at the end, if the environment isn't healthy, we cannot be healthy. It is our duty as Kenyans to push for amendments in these laws to have some more deterrence fines so that these people should stop committing these crimes actually. So if we have this, if we amend these laws and if we are able to protect our environment, that is for our sake and for the sake of the future generations. Since we cannot forget, there's no planet B, there's nowhere we can go. Thank you.
And that is what will bring the change that we are looking out for. Thank you for keeping time, I bet in that case. So we go to the next presentation by Mick Mutheu. Yes, sir. Oh, it's not. That is. Okay. Good afternoon, Sophie. Sophie, how are you? What's that one? Sophie, how are you? Sophie, can you hear us? Hello, Sophie. Hello, Sophie. Only somebody texting because she can't hear at the minute. Maybe somebody would. Hello, Sophie. Are you ready for your presentation? Sophie, we cannot hear you. We see you talking, but we can't get to you. How are you? Please unmute your mic. Hello. Your mic, please unmute, Sophie. Hello, Sophie, we can't hear you. Maybe we'll give you time to work on your mic so that you can move on this side. You'll be on the old, then we can get back to you later. Is that okay? In the interest of time. so they could be fixing it. You can save on a minute. They have it. Mary Ken.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. Yes, so my name is Mary, and I thought of looking at something very, we call it mundane. It's part of everyday activity. We do it every day, but I don't think we give it so much thought. When you go visiting your child in school, do you think it has any impact? When you go visiting your friends, what is the essence of that visitation? So my thought was on this. So my thought was on these inmates in prison. Do we really think about how they feel once they're inside there? So that's why I thought, does this visitation have any influence? Do they even receive visits at all? So we know that we're interested in reducing reoffending, but reoffending occurs upon an individual going back to the community. So what happens to this individual when they go back to the community, to the point that this person reoffends? Was there any form, or was the reintegration successful? What are these components of the reintegration process? Who plays a part in the reintegration process? It is the people in the community. These individuals we live, we are the people to receive them in the community. So how we perceive of them once they come back or once they're in prison really plays a key role in whether they reoffend or not. So in the interest of time, recidivism is on the rise. We want to combat recidivism. So our interest is on looking at visitation. Does it happen? How does it happen? How frequent does it happen? Who is the visitor that comes in? Do they really have that impact on the individual? So we go on. So this, we were just looking at how does it influence resident among the inmates. So our interests were on offenders who are in prison for the second or subsequent time. So, of course, we are saying we have research on recidivism, we have research on crime prevention, but this singular aspect of visitation, none has been done, or very, very little has been done on it. Then why is it significant for us? Because we're interested. Can we build on this to inform policy? Can we optimize the policies in existence to help alleviate the problem or deal with the problem as criminologists, as crime prevention experts and all? Are these rehabilitation efforts that we have, what can we do about it beyond incarceration? Then, of course, we're interested in contributing to academic literature. So there's a lot of literature which you can always interact with on recidivism. I do not want to look at it. But when you look at social ties, when I asked about visitation, you go visiting this person. Those are social ties. The social controls that keep us in check. Those controls that hold you back. If I commit this offense, what will my colleagues think about me? What will my family think about me? So the essence of it is to strengthen these inmate bonds that we have. I think I forgot to put it here, that we have various forms of visitation. We have in-person visitation, we have conjugal visitation, we have, what else? Conjugal and follows. Kenya, we are trying to interpret on digital visitation. So though it's only one prison in Nakuru which attempted to do it, though it's a logistical nightmare because it entails officers going to the home, setting up the parents or whoever is interested in visiting them, then now linking them with the prison officer. So if we can work around those logistical nightmares, then we can be able to curb it. Then this was informed by the social control theory. When you look at it, attachment, commitment, involvement, and belief, all this can help us to build on it. So we looked at Langata Women's JK Prison. We looked at Nairobi Remand and Maximum Allocation Security Prison. So the design was cross-sectional survey with purposive sampling of the prison officers and a census of 103 recidivists. So both men and women. So we collected data using questionnaires and interviews, and then we used descriptive statistics and content analysis. So what are the findings? What did we encounter? So these are just the biographical representation of the offenders. So most of them were aged between 20 and 29 years, with most of them having attained primary education. So with also majority of them married. So that was also interesting. Then when you look at these charts, does it have any impact on behavior? So when you look at those visited, almost 60% of them showed positive behavioral changes, while those who are not visited, of course, exhibited those. When I'm talking about positive behavioral changes, brawling prisons, engaging in violence within the prison and all that. Then the next one, does it have any impact at all? Of course, 75% of the respondents agreed that that type of visitation, it doesn't matter who came, it doesn't matter how short the time was, but the fact that someone came to check on them while in prison mattered to them, because to them they knew that they'll be received from prison, or rather they have that they have a reception when they go back home. So though the 25% who did not receive any visitors do not see any relationship at all, to them they were like, whether I'm visited or not, it doesn't matter, because let me use hata nikienda kule nje hakuna mtu ananijali. So the social conditions are the same. So one of the inmates told us that I was accused of killing my mom. She was in for murder. But to her explanation was this was accidental. Alimpiga na mwiko cha kupika. So, and the mother accidentally hit the wall and she passed on. So to the family, she's the murderer. You're the cause of the mom. So they came to prison to tell her that you don't have a place in the home. So she was rejected. So even if I'm given any presidential pardon today, I have nowhere to go. So you see, that contributes to her constant reoffending. So you'd find that while in prison, she was one of the offenders who was constantly in breach of prison regulations. So, does it have any influence on behavior? Does it have any challenges? Yes. Improved demeanor, reduced depression and suicidal thoughts. It also strengthens social bonds with family and reduces reoffending. The challenges are the insufficient visitation time, the visitor relationship significance, of course, poor visitation amenities and facilities. So this study proved that visitation really helps in reducing those challenges. It helps to improve the general demeanor of this offender. Social bonds formed through visitation, of course, help in successful integration to the community. So those are the recommendations. Can we build on this so that we can have ample time? Embrace technology. Establish these systems and infrastructure so that we can have the conjugal visitations in Kenyan prisons, which we don't have. Enforce regulations that promote and strengthen inmate visitation. For example, the Kenya Prison Service to come and sensitize members of the public that these people need to have a place to come home to. Then, of course, commitment to alternatives and all. So the implication for this is to just make sure that it will be interesting to look at those singular aspects of visitation. Does it have an impact? How does a parent visiting you differ from say, a colleague visiting you? Thank you. That was a marathon.
Thank you, Ms. Goretti. Quite a provoking.
Okay, thank you. Now, when the politicians comes, they find that there is a music in Tharaka. Then they instrumentalize that music to use it to attract the crowd so that they can embrace or pass their manifesto. Secondly, I looked at the clanism. In Tharaka, clans are embraced. The clans, they are the clans that they cannot do some activities together. There are those who respect the other. There are those who intermarry. There are those who don't intermarry. There are the clans which are more populated. I can mention a few, like the clan like Lankina and so on. So if you look at the politics of Tharaka from 1963, because Tharaka has been a constituency from 1963 and to date, you see that 1963, the first politician, they used the music which was there, like Yahweh and so on, and Mau songs. There was a serious Mau in Tharaka, and then they used Kranzing Ikiswahili mtu wetu. And there's something I come to understand when I was doing this research. There was a 2013, we had a serious politician, there was a serious politician in the village, and the people thought that he would score 100%. But we found that there were 150 votes from somewhere we don't know. So the other day, the time I noticed, the women from the other clan who were married here voted to their person from there. So I found that whenever you are going to seek the vote, make sure you make your wife will vote for you. Otherwise, if their clan is there, you may not be voted. And you stay with her. Then age set. Tharaka age set, I found it very, very, very intact. The person who you passed with the same rite of passage, the person you was schooling with, the person you was gracing them together, then the person you did the same activity together. If those people, if one of the individual 6 votes, there is a likelihood they will vote for him. That is my study, and contribution, the history of Tharaka, although it is not so much written, but things are there, and then recommendation about the sustainable goals, peace. For example, I found that there are some clans which have bad blood since like the coming of the white man. So if that person since votes, no. Even if it is what, even if it comes with what, you will not be voted. So I came up with the conclusion, but I did not use recommendations. Recommendations are there, I'm not through, but I found it is good to sensitize people. Let us look at a person the way he is, not to piece of this, because these things are so deep. If you look at the Western, Karawale, for example, he uses the fight of the bulls to attract the crowd. So it is something instrumentalized in those areas. And that is why I narrowed back to the Tharaka community. Thank you. Recommendation which I have is people should be sensitized about the importance of their culture, but also they should be able to restrain much from using it even when electing leaders. Yes.
Thank you so much. I hear it and laughter. If we had more time, the music would come in handy. Thank you, Raphael, for that presentation. And in meeting the goals of development, especially in the concept of unity and peace in the activities that lead to development of our country. We have 4 left. If the online, who is that?
Thank you. My name is Musabe, and my topic for presentation is the Superman syndrome of Nietzsche and sustainable development in Kenya. As under philosophy, I'm a master student in philosophy. I've divided my work into 5 sections. Section 1, Nietzsche's Superman, a philosophical framework.
Hello, Lusabe, as you continue. Good afternoon.
Development in Kenya.
Lusabe, how are you?
I'm fine, how are you?
We are fine, we are many. Welcome to the presentation. We are giving you 5 minutes in the interest of time. So reorganize your work so that you do 5, at most 6 minutes. Then we'll see whether there are questions which you can respond to. Thank you.
Okay, and am I able to, my work accent for projecting, because I can't be able to project from this side?
We can't see it on the projector. Maybe we'll see it in the course of your interaction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can begin?
Sure.
Thank you. As I said, my name is Lusabe. I'm a master student in philosophy, and I'm presenting, and my topic is the Superman syndrome of Nietzsche and sustainable development in Kenya. My work is divided in 5 sections. Section 1 is Nietzsche's Superman, a philosophical framework. Section 2, sustainable development in Kenya, challenges and opportunities. 3, the Superman and sustainable development in Kenya. 4, ethical and practical considerations. And then 5, pathways to implementation. I start by way of introduction. Sustainable development presents a complex and multifaceted challenge, particularly in regions such as Kenya, where the social, economic, and environmental conditions are highly intricate and interconnected. This research deeply explores the link between Nietzsche's philosophy of the Superman, of the idea of Superman, and the pursuit of sustainable development in Kenya. The investigation seeks to determine whether applying Nietzsche's principles could yield innovative and effective solutions to the myriad issues facing Kenya, thereby fostering long-term ecological, social, and economic prosperity. The ultimate goal of the study is to ascertain whether Nietzsche's ideas can contribute to creating a more harmonious, balanced, and flourishing future for the nation. So section 1 is about Superman, and then before I talk about Superman, we'll put into context Nietzsche's philosophy. Nietzsche is a 19th century European philosopher who came at a time when idealism was flourishing. And idealism is basically about universalism. And Nietzsche, plus others, thought that actually this idea of universalism usurps the individual, the human being. So where is the human being? Besides him critiquing idealism, he critiques Christianity because he thinks Christianity is the highest manifestation of that universalism. And in Christianity, he singles out the idea of God. And he says this God is the one who has been exalted at the expense of the human being. So what we do to exalt the human being, he declares that we have to kill God. So he declares that God is dead, and that's why we now have to exalt the human being. The Superman for Nietzsche is a perfect being who is beyond human. He's genius, he's all round, and the characteristics that he's creative, he's independent, he's persistent, and is better than anyone. And therefore, this Superman is the one that replaces God. And of course, there are critiques about that. It brings the aspect of arrogance. We have seen in Kenya when someone believes that they are Superman, they have the Superman syndrome, they think they can do anything. Of course, we're going to take good ideas from the Superman ideology to bring to sustainable development. Sustainable development has 3 pillars. The first is economic growth, the second is social welfare, and the third is environmental conservation. So how can we use Nietzsche's ideas to promote sustainable development in Kenya. Of course, Kenya, we talk about sustainable development in line with the 2030 visions. Despite the challenges that Kenya faces in terms of sustainable development, and we are asking, can we use Nietzsche's ideas to actually fulfill Kenya's dream in the Vision 2030? So what ideas are those? The ideas are creativity and innovation. Also, it will also have its challenges. The other idea is ethical autonomy, because we want people to really come out with innovation so that they can be able to help Kenya's economy to grow very well. And of course, we have seen that being a Superman, it means, as Nietzsche suggested, to be counter-conventional, to be creative, to be other. And as some speakers have already mentioned, the Gen Zs have been counter-conventional, and that's why they're standing out, that's why they're making us think. And with the use of technology, they are doing very, very well. That is the area we want to exploit: innovation, creativity. If we are going to allow creativity and innovation, especially, of course, among the young, we are going to exploit the talents that Kenya has. We have already seen this in M-COPA programs, in other programs that people, M-PESA, people are so creative, but we want to encourage that quite a lot. Of course, there are challenges in terms of ethical and practical considerations. What does it mean if we have only a few supermen in Kenya? As we have seen, thank God, the cabinet has been sent away because we saw a lot of supermen there. What about the vulnerable ones? What about those who are weak in the society? How can we also help them so that everyone in Kenya is Superman? How do we destroy the idea of elitism and exclusion in terms of development in Kenya? So because of time, I'll just keep the pathways to implementation as the last section. About education and institutional reform. How is our education? How is our education gearing towards making people innovative, creative, so that they can be able to contribute to the development of the economy and sustain the development? And the question of community empowerment. How are we doing this? These are the areas in which we have to focus on to really invest. It's unfortunate that in Kenya, the education that we have, even if you look at the budget, it's being cut all the time. So how are we going to be innovative if the area of education is not encouraged, if the area of research is not encouraged, is not paramount? Probably, as others have said, the reason why Kenya lags behind is because we're always catching up, the whole of Africa, always catching up when it comes to technology and innovation. So in conclusion, I want to say that integrating Nietzsche's concept of Superman into Kenya's sustainable development brings a fresh perspective, encouraging innovation, resilience, and ethical independence. This philosophical approach can improve, can inspire new solutions, enhance community strength, and advance sustainable measures addressing Kenya's socio-economic and environmental issues in a novel and impactful way. By considering the principles of creativity and determination that drives progress in various sectors, ultimately contributing to the nation's long-term prosperity. However, it's crucial to carefully consider the ethical implications and practical applications of introducing this concept to ensure that all parts of society benefit. And as the end, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Rusabe. We could clap for him. on philosophy. We just want to see if there is one quick question, because we may not be able to get you back on the screen after this. Is there anybody who has a reaction on that? Sabe, you seem to have convinced all the listeners on your ideology, and let's hope that as you complete the research, its contribution will be key in matters pertaining to development. Now, I wish to check on what time it is so that we advise each other. Now it is 5:10. We have one more presenter online who is ready, and I have 5 on the waiting. I have 2 Dennises, the other there was 1. I have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus this one. Will our patient be worn out? Do we wait on each other and finish, or do we push a few to tomorrow? You can think about that as...
Push a few. If we stick to the 5 minutes limitation, it's possible.
And interact.
If we still take the 10 minutes, we supposed to push it. But it will affect the tomorrow.
Let's have the one who is online. That is it Jacob? Jackton. Jackton, how are you? Hello, Jackton. Good afternoon, Jackton.
Afternoon. Hello.
Hello, Jackton, how are you?
I'm fine.
In with your presentation. In the interest of time, we will give you 5 minutes. You just give us the key issues in your research and few of the recommendations that you have made. Then we will see the reaction from the audience in terms of any question that you may need to respond to. So welcome, and maximize on the 5 minutes to give your presentation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I sent my slide. I don't know whether they can also be projected. Because I was trying to project mine and I was taking time. So I can continue as they work on that.
Yeah, we encourage you to continue as they set the projection.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just from University. I have a presentation on effect of Facebook information disorder on sociocultural sustainability. I'll move very fast because of time. Now, what interested me in this topic is that much effort has been done on issues concerning attaining the Vision 2030 by looking at the economic aspect, but the social cultural aspect has been ignored. And the gaps into which this study find that Facebook is widely used as a source of information, and the spread of misinformation, fake news, and conspiracy theories are vital in this platform. And also, I find that as Valence described, sociocultural sustainability as precise promotion of diverse cultural, social, and ethical values within the society. But the information disorder that can challenge the aspect of this sociocultural sustainability has not been looked into. And I find that much focus has been on economic and environmental growth, and sociocultural sphere concerned with language and communication in digital space has remained unnoticed. And therefore, in this study, we explore the mechanism through which information disorder spread on Facebook, and also the effect of Facebook information disorder on cultural beliefs, social cohesion, and community resilience. We use the development mental sociocultural framework proposed by Bradley in understanding the interaction between individual development and the sociocultural context. And I will not read the literature review, maybe I just look at the discussion because of time. I've reached the result of discussion kindly. Now, the informants that were used in the interview, we had 21 males and 29 females, and out of them, we realized that in the age group of 26 to 30, majority who use Facebook are female at 30%, then 14 males. And the age of 41 and above are rarely visiting Facebook, that is at 2%. And then to find out the mechanisms of information disorder spread on Facebook, we used 6 parameters. The first one was which took the lead was sharing. In sharing, individuals who use Facebook post an idea on Facebook for people to view, and sometimes they can have information which is not true and not verified. Then there is amplification, and in amplification, a Facebook user gets what is posted in Facebook, and then he adds his idea. He adds what he feels on it, and then posts it on Facebook page for others to view. And then there is the third one, which was influential user page, which like there are those who are popular in posting on Facebook, and their pages are being liked, and then some people repost on the wall for public view. And then there is algorithmic recommendation. And this one, we have 2 forms where there is connected content and recommended content. In connected content, posts from friends, Facebook groups, and liked pages are shared. And then recommended content posts which is likely to interest the users come from pages and people they do not follow. Then they like or they share. The fifth one was equity. The information or opinions that reflect somebody's interest gets reflected on the Facebook page for viewers to share or read or add their opinion on. Then the last one was filter chambers, where pre-selected personalizations on media consumption is created by personalized algorithms and then are shared on Facebook. And then concerning the effect of these misinformation being spread on Facebook using the parameters we have discussed, we found that participants who are interviewed reported that there is a decrease in trust and confidence in social institutions and traditional practices. And also there is an influence of information disorder. So you can scroll for me. I'm not able to. Okay, fine. The influence of information disorder, which is prominent in certain attitudes towards sensitive cultural and religious issues, where false narratives or conspiracy theories are often perpetuated. And then on the effect on social cohesion, participants who are interviewed reported that there is an increase in polarization and conflict within their community, and that information disorder leads to the formation of opposing ideological groups and decreased willingness to engage in constructive dialogue. And this one was majorly seen on the soccer fans who sometimes engage in fierce discussion and end up getting into conflict. And then on the community resilience, the study uncovered a decrease in community resilience due to the impact of misinformation. And this one, we find that misinformation and fake news lead to a disruption in the transmission of cultural knowledge and practices. And individuals become uncertain about the authenticity and credibility of cultural information which they find in the Facebook and they share without verifying their credibility. So in conclusion, which is also part of the recommendation, we find that in this research we have looked at the critical role of Facebook in shaping sociocultural sustainability, and we have emphasized on the need for proactive measures to address information disorder on the platform. So, based on the understanding of this mechanism, and the spread. When we look into it, it can bring us into preserving and safeguarding our social cultural heritage in this digital age for misinformation not to spread. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson, for your quick presentation. You shed some light on, we'll pick a question or two so that when we get you offline, we may not have to reconsider the questions. You have shed light on information disorder. What are 2 or 3 things in just one sentence that you think could be done in order to use Facebook constructively for the development of the country, especially on the social and cultural matters? Just point them out.
Okay, thank you. Though much has been done on security of Facebook that people have ignored, so I think, on my opinion, there should be awareness on our community of verifying the information before they pass it to another person, and also to avoid polarizing information. Some people change people's images on Facebook because of maybe revenge. But when we are created, when an awareness is created on us at a societal level, then we will use Facebook positively, other than using it as a revenge platform.
Thank you for that, because culture is key. It's important in development and sustaining the correct social environment, which is again important if development has to go on. So maybe it's good also to capitalize on the importance of positive areas on the same. I'll ask the audience for any reaction before we let our presenter off the loop. Any reaction? Thank you, Dr. for that. Appreciate. Okay, so back to ourselves. I'll have Dennis Odieki and then Dennis Musoti.
Good evening, all of you. I'm Dennis, and I want to present to you a study on colonial policies against female circumcision among the Nyakoe people. The period was from 1907 to 1963. In history, periodization is very key because this is the time that the colonialists came and they established their colonial rule in Nyakoe. Okay, thank you. So when the like I was saying, female circumcision in many societies. So female circumcision is a practice that is practiced across the globe, not just in Nyakoe village. And many societies across the globe have many rites or passages which their members must undergo. And female circumcision is one of them. And this practice has not only affected men, but it has affected also women. In Africa, female circumcision is seen to be a very precious rite of passage because it prepares the girl for marriage. So the objective of this study was to find out the policies that the colonial government put in place to cap the right of female circumcision. So after they had come to Busland, and especially in Nyakoi village, they found some of the cultures, and especially female circumcision, to be barbaric. So they started their campaign on civilization, and one of their civilization mission was to root out some of these cultures. And one of these cultures was female circumcision. So they established policies to cap out these rites of passage, and one of them is female circumcision. Despite these policies which they had put in place in Nyakoi village, many of the villagers in Nyakoi did not buy those policies, so they continued with their rite of passage that is female circumcision. That's why this study found out, despite these policies, why did this practice go on? This study was guided by one theory, that is cultural attraction theory, which explains why and how ideas, practices, artifacts, and cultures persist among communities. So this theory was there to explain, to find out why female circumcision has persisted among the Nyakoi people. This study, the methodology of this study, one, it used the descriptive research design to describe the state of female circumcision among the Nyakoi people. The location of this study was in Nyakoi village, because female circumcision has persisted in that region. In Nyakoi village, these are people, the people live there are the Abagusi, one of the Western Bantu communities. The population of this area, according to the census of 2019, is 23,096 people. The sampling techniques that guided this study was purposive sampling, that is to go specifically to the people who had the information about female circumcision according to the objectives of this study. And we used the snowboarding techniques, that is to go, the person who recommends or who had information on female circumcision to recommend to the next person who could be having information as per the objective of that study. The research instruments that guided this study were interview schedule, were held, focus group discussions, and observation schedules. And then the data was collected from primary data archive and then secondary data. The data was analyzed qualitatively. The findings of the study were that, you can move. The policies that were put in place, one was that the missionaries made a declaration that all baptized Ghost people, especially in Nyakoi village, had to declare their loyalty by denouncing female circumcision. So you could not be allowed to, for example, to be part of the churches that were established in Gusland if you had not denounced that rite of passage, that's female circumcision. Then the colonialists introduced some forms of taxes, and these taxes were not imposed on the women. They were imposed on the men. So remember, these taxes were paid in the form of money and animals. And because the men were paid little wages, they had to pay those taxes in form of labor. So the men left their homes to go and work in the colonial farms, and when they left the women at their homes, that's the time the colonialists come and impose their patriarchal policies, forcing the women to do what? To buy their ideologies, to buy their policies against female circumcision. Because as the study goes, it said that female circumcision has persisted in Jerusalem because of the men. It's the men who want the girls to be what? Circumcised. And when the men were outside their homes, this is the time the colonists would come and persuade the women to forgo that rite of passage. Then according to the report that was obstructed from there, that is from the archives, schools were established. For example, Nyabururu Secondary School was established, Kisu School was established, and these schools were established to serve as centers of civilization. And one of the civilization missions, like I've said, was to convert the Bagusi, especially of the Nagoya village, from practicing some of their these practices like female circumcision. And of course, there are so many there are so many policies that were put in place. So in the conclusion, the research found out that the policies were there, but these policies did not take much root. One, the manner in which they were put, how they were formed. Remember, these policies were formed by the colonial government and then disseminated down to the people. The local people were not given room, they were not put to the table to also come up with this. With these policies. So they were taken there, and maybe the people who took there were the chiefs, who were seen to be the sympathizers of the colonies. So the people rejected them together with the policies that they took there. So the recommendation which is not here is that even the post-colonial governments, when they are making policies, let them inform the local people. Sometimes you have seen places like Samburu, Pokot, whereby there is banditry, and this banditry has continued for long. Sometimes the government makes policies in Nairobi and then they send them to those places without involving the local people. Not only the government, even I know all of us here seated here, some of us are parents. Sometimes we sit and then make rules and then we expect the children to buy them. Sometimes there is a backlash from those people that the laws are intended to receive from. So my recommendation is that whenever we make the policies, let us involve all the stakeholders, including the local people. Thank you.
Let's hear the information. It's important for all of us as scholars and see how it can be related to both the theme of the conference and relations vision.
So, sorry, as Dennis presents, is Alex in? Okay, Alex is not there. Maigaro is in, Daktari. And then is Okwema.
Alright, so Dennis Masoto, and I want to present a work that I did as a seminar in my PhD program, and I'm working on the influence of the juvenile justice in curbing the juvenile offenses in Kenya, and my focus was in Uasin Gishu County. And this work, I got the gist of this work from when I was collecting the data from the AMA program, and I realized that in the prisons that I visited, majority of the offenders are the middle-aged, and some of them are juvenile, so to speak. I think two presenters presented something related to the juvenile, so I'll not go into details about who a juvenile is and a juvenile offender. Now, thank you. So, juveniles, as we know them, it is any person who have not attained the age of maturity. And the interest with this work was to check whether the existing juvenile justice is effective in managing these juveniles. And my concern was, why should we have in this juvenile recidivism, yet we have the juvenile justice? And I tried to look at this work and I realized that it's a global issue, it's an African issue, it's a regional issue. Thank you. All right, and I was saying that globally, the juvenile recidivism has been highly registered. And I looked at an example in the United States of America, at least $5.7 US is spent on the juvenile recidivists. When it comes to India, I realized that at least 3.7 also is used for these juvenile recidivists, which also made me question, is this juvenile justice really effective? Also in the African setting, I was able to look at the South African, which equally registered 13 million juvenile recidivists. Equally in Nigeria, which equally have some juvenile recidivists, which I can't remember the number well. And now coming specifically to Wasingishu County, I realized that 38.9% of the juvenile who are in prison had committed an offense, so they've been rearrested for the second time, which now motivated me to this work to check whether this juvenile justice is actually effective in managing these offenses. And, sorry. So that one gives me my gap for the study. So the methodology, the location of the study was in Wasingishu County, and I used the descriptive survey research design, sampled 87 respondents, and I used the questionnaire and interview schedule, and the data analysis used the means, the percentages, which was the descriptive to describe the data, and then to check whether there is an influence, as per se, of the juvenile justice on the juvenile offenders. I used the correlation analysis. It presents the Carl Pearson moment correlation. And the findings, I'm going very fast in the interest of time. The findings of all the sample population, I've skipped the demographic information, which I find it not very relevant. I realized that majority of my respondents, actually 71.26, strongly agreed that the Department of the Juvenile Justice is efficient in the management of the juvenile delinquency. But despite that fact, it is coupled with myriads of challenges. And one of it that I realized was that there is inadequacies in financing from the government, because we realize that these juvenile justice practitioners, they have to go through trainings, okay? And for them to effectively manage these cases, they have to have what we call individualized position of handling each juvenile, so that you understand their specific needs, so that you know which area to focus more on that treatment processes. Of course, among many of those ones. And then on this card, to complement descriptive statistics, I also computed this on the Carl Pearson moment correlation, which, checking on the probation officer's role, it had the recidivist rate, or it has a Pearson correlation of 0.4. 417, implying that for sure the department is effective. Though I mentioned there is some few challenges that are incorporated in that department. And I think I'm almost done in the slides. So looking at that one, it implies that if we have adequate financing from the government, we have proper training of the juvenile justice officials who are managing these offenders, then we are going to have reduced cases of recidivism. And I think now in my summary, now that the key area of focus was to check on this influence of the juvenile justice, actually to find that it is effective, but to address these juvenile offenses and reduce the cases of recidivism, then that cycle of offender assessment, that cycle of supervision, as well as the rehabilitation and reintegration process should be given a greater attention. In all these processes here is when the probation officers who are executing this mandate can come to understand the juvenile so well, and in the process, ensure that now in the process of the treatment, they look at those nitty-gritties of those offenders and how they can treat them so that they can reduce those cases of recidivism. And of course, the recommendation is to make sure that now we incorporate the specific treatment and rehabilitation program to those special cases. Because if we don't do this one, then we may do a treatment to the entire population thinking that they have almost a similar problem. But if you individualize the treatment, it implies that chances of getting the recidivism is very low because you get in touch with each independent offender, and now you can know which is the specific treatment for that particular offender, and it can be very effective to reduce any cases of recidivism. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Dennis. We appreciate the speed. I am finding every topic interesting in its own way. As Dennis did his presentation, I thought about the idea of how many junior offenders, I'll call them thus, we have, and my mind went even to the streets. And this is leading to a multiplication, and it has its own implication on the economy, the social fiber, and other issues related to peace and amicable correlation within the society. And I'm realizing we have a lot of ground to cover in research, because some of the children we find in the street could have been the same children vomited by the institutions of rehabilitation, and maybe they have nowhere to go, or they want to have a freedom to do what they may not be able to do when they are in a given environment. And I think our going out to check out on such areas could be very useful in consolidating even those that need either psychological or other sorts of rehabilitation, so that even when they are out of the juvenile centers, they can be accepted and be made to be useful. So I think there is quite plenty of ground to cover when it comes to research and information. That challenge is on our side. Yes, your reaction maybe?
Just to request the presenter to check, explore the possibility of establishing the socialization background, so that even when you talk about them receiving justice, then you know why are they getting into such crimes at that age? What is the barrier? Possibly to your research so much when you establish that, because you'll be able now to agitate for their justice when you know where they're coming from.
Yeah, because of the time and reaction.
It's all right.
Part of the key thing of focus was to check on the social demographic characteristics of these juvenile offenders, so that we try to look at their environment. Does it necessitate them into this recidivism? And one key thing that was quite interesting in the process of interviewing one of my respondents, actually the director of probation and aftercare services, he said the environment back at home is not so conducive to most of them, to a point that there was one juvenile who was advised by the others when he had finished his term, going back home. He said, home is worse than here. So they were trying to advise him, how can he come back? So they told him it is very simple. Go back, make sure that your most immediate neighbor commit a crime there, and the crime was steal anything worth, and you'll come back here. Which actually happened. You see, so there is multiple things that I've just tried because of time, but it is an interesting area.
So, looks like we really have a lot to do cleaning up in the society, right from the family setup, so that we are able to deal with the same. I see you are anxious. You do the presentation, will be patient for you. You don't want to react, do you? Yeah. Yes, as you do the reaction. So we will have Dr. Maigaro, and finally we shall have Kemunto. Okay, you're welcome.
I'm waiting for the paper. So as I react, all of you have been doing rehabilitation. You see, sorry, the time is not there. But we are talking with Christine and you're like, there is socialization, it is lacking. And if you go to our stand there on Sonzo, we apply the 4R: rescue, rehabilitate, integrate, and socialize. We began that project with street children. So as you walk out there, you can borrow an idea of what they are doing, because most of the time we are partnering with that organization. Please come, we are open. Like you've been asking me, my girl, how wazungu nafanya nao ni wagani? This young man you saw me walking around with is from the University of Texas Medical Branch, and they are here to see what we do, and for us to see what they do, so that we can see how do we partner in growing our research, especially in rehabilitation of both children, adults, addicts. Like I'm doing a project on addicts where we want to integrate them in. There is no time to speak, we can talk about it later. Now, you were talking about the children, and to us now, we are looking at women criminality. 5 minutes are very many. If you're walking from here to Dadani or wherever at whatever time, and you met a man or a woman, whom are you more afraid of? It's the man. But most of the time we say it is men who are involved in crime, but trends have changed. Trends have changed. We have women engaging in crime. We have women, previously we thought women are just, what do we call them? They just help in crime. Currently, evidence shows that women are participants in crime. They are people who are formulating crime and doing the crime. Women are carrying guns, something we want to assume. So we sought out to know, well, kurutu yangu, mimi ni kurutu sijui kutumia hizi vitu. This one. Okay. So we sought out to know, what do you think determines crime in informal settlements among women? And this is a larger part of the research we've done. And you're for this presentation, say if I'm lost. Which one? Okay. So we wanted to see, in the larger picture, we want to see the socio-economic and the environmental determinants of crime. And now Safe is laying me because I said I'm not finishing 5 minutes. Okay. I will say the research design we used to use the descriptive survey research. And we went to informal settlements in Kiambu. Why Kiambu? Very little studies done in Kiambu. And in Kiambu, there are 7 informal settlements, but we settled for the 5, the largest one. We collected data using questionnaires and focus group discussions. And we analyzed our data quantitatively using percentages and frequencies. And our data was Likert scale. So we analyzed this data using Kruskal-Wallis, because that is the most recommended for non-parametric test. And now I'm waiting for the findings, which I can't find. But what I know is that most respondents agreed that social factors contribute to criminality amongst women. I'm not able to give the differences, so let's wait for Safe to give us the slides. So the family structure, you can see there were no significant differences. Differences came with gender as a social determinant, or the way they perceived it. And I'm looking at gender and marital status. Yes, there were major differences, like people felt that people of different marital status felt there were differences in how those contributed to crime, or thought that social factors contributed to crime, and also the education levels and the longevity in informal settlements. And we asked ourselves, why would that difference be? One, you will realize that the way a single person perceives the determinants of crime might be quite different from the way a married one determines. Same case with levels of education. And so I think we are summarizing that we agreed that there is, with the social factors were perceived to contribute to criminality amongst women, and also marital status strongly influenced the criminality amongst women. And so in the recommendations, we are saying, these are not the ones I know. In our recommendations, we are saying that the law enforcers should look at these issues, especially the family structure, and see how to mitigate the tendencies of crime that are rising from family. There's a lot we can discuss, but because we are running out of time, let us know that women are participating in crime. If you have a daughter, wherever they are, don't say, let me just get out of topic. Don't say that my daughter cannot take drugs. Drugs are now being taken by girls more than boys. So as we protect the girl child and the boy child, let's know also the girl is in a lot of trouble here and in the informal settlements. Thank you.
Thank you, Daktari. Why is it their time? I think we are losing an opportunity to come most of these areas and come up with, because I was going to ask, which are these crimes? Because if you know the type and the nature of crimes, you're also able maybe to follow from a psychological perspective, how can they be handled so that, yeah. So, the interest of time is dealing a blow to our discovery. Maybe a reaction?
Just to enrich on, possibly it might be there in the internal bit
of the document. Did you explore this possibility of the gender empowerment that is taking place? And you are realizing the weakness in men, us, is also contributing to you committing more crimes in the entire society. Because the other day, 2 beautiful ladies abducted my principal here in Chuka. and they intoxicated him, and he was able to say the PIN of the account, and everything was withdrawn, and they left him in a bad state until he could not even supervise the examination. Then they were caught around Thika the following day, when the principal was almost losing the job. So you can tell us if that is also an aspect that you have considered during the establishing what is really necessitating ladies and women to cause more crimes than even men.
Yes, we interrogated, and one funny finding or great finding is that women, and now especially in the informal settlements, are the breadwinners of their families. So many of them are going to whatever length to make sure they have money, and also the peer influence. That if I'm in crime, I will encourage my... She asked about the type of crimes, including prostitution, smuggling, and so on. We looked at several of them. And you'll realize that if I'm in crime, I will encourage my friend to be in crime, so it looks fashionable. And so we will go out there too. Men are not at home. So we are left out here, and we incite each other into participating in crime. That is where, when you look at gender, a man would say, my wife does not participate in crime because he's not there to know. But if he was told by the neighbors and other friends what these women are doing with other women, you will be surprised. So we really interrogated that seriously if you look at the document.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm also feeling another area is you could add on the concept is crime evolving in the contemporary issues that are coming, because that movement, if it is evolving, then it would lead a signal of danger, because it will keep rolling out and becoming a little more difficult to handle.
That is a good suggestion for another research.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Can you reach to that? Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. We have our last presenter. I don't think it's you. Yes. That is Kemuto. You're welcome, Kemuto.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be presenting a study on television advertising and sustainable development. On my introduction, I'm trying to investigate the intersection between the three aspects, that is culture, gender, and social inclusion in television advertising, with a focus on the impact that these television advertising have on sustainable development. Putting in mind that my study will have fair representation in television advertising, because I'll strictly pick the adverts that advertise products that project the SDGs. And then the gaps I found out on the literature review. In culture, you have to understand the societal values, where people come from. They're different people have different societal values. They have different beliefs. On the same hand, I was looking at the gender, and when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the gender that is mostly affected are the women, unlike the males, so that's the gap that I found. And then on the social inclusion, I was looking at how people are represented, and I found out that people from the marginalized areas and those with disabilities are the most ones that are affected. Into my research methodology, I'm going to use purposive sampling to choose my study site. On the next, I'll do cluster random sampling for the selection of my audience, because I'm focusing mainly on the people that have disabilities, people from the marginalized areas, and those that are affected by the Sustainable Development Goals. And for those people, I'll use questionnaires to get data. But for the TV advertisement that I have selected, I'll use simple random sampling, but not for all the adverts, but strictly on adverts that are about the Sustainable Development Goals. In my proportion for my respondents that I decided to use for this conference, I was looking at the variable where I'm looking at the people who are watching television, and I found out that a total of 337 decided to answer my questionnaires, which responds to 100%. And how often they watch, it depends. There are people who watch daily. There are some people who watch TV weekly. Some watch fortnight, and some watch, and my population now tallied to 100. On looking at the adverts that are now being presented on our television about sustainable development goals, I realized that these adverts have both negative and positive impacts towards various aspects about SDGs. And for instance, the positive impact I found out was for the audience who watch this advertising. The way you watch, for instance, we advertising for renewable energy, and those audiences who watch the television may wish to adapt the renewable energy because it will have less effects into their lives than the use of fossil fuel. But on the other hand, there are these people who don't watch television, right? So if these people don't watch, they don't know what sustainable development goal is all about. And these people, if you tell someone about the renewable energy, they decide to distance themselves from that issue because they don't literally understand what you're telling them. And from that issue, these people who do not watch, they decide not to act accordingly and distance themselves from the sustainable development goals that we're aiming at. Into my recommendations, I have advertisers need to connect with sustainable development issues that matter to the audience. For instance, people in the marginalized areas, these advertisers need to at least have adverts that when these people look at the adverts, they can connect with the environment they are in. And then the government should also organize training to emphasize solutions and benefits of sustainable development goals. The academicians, people like us and researchers, we have to have facts. You cannot be telling people that we're moving to renewable energy, but at the same time you don't have the facts. Unless you have the figures, you cannot convince someone. On the other hand, stakeholders and policymakers should advocate for campaigns that outline the benefits of SDGs. And for stakeholders to do this, they need to come up with good policies. And when making policies, they need to incorporate everyone. Now you don't seclude people from the marginalized areas, the women who feel they are secluded, but you include everyone so that it can benefit the whole community. In summary, towards achieving sustainable development goals, you need to identify 4 key issues. What is the problem you want to solve? What is the solution towards that problem? What is your strategy? And what is the tactics? For what is the problem, now you have to look at what do we want to change. If we have a problem with fossil fuel, for instance, what do you want to change with that? Who will be your target? If you're targeting, let's say, the people from the marginalized areas, and you get people, for instance, from Chuka have the resources, but they don't have the capability of helping themselves out. So you have to tell us how we're going to do it. And on my final slide, because you need to understand your audience, you have to segment your audience. You cannot put an elderly man who is 80 years with the Gen Zs. They can't understand each other. At the same time, you have to look at the different cultures and different categories. You have to look at people's beliefs and attitudes, the personal relevance, the localized impacts, and then you have to do fact-checking. I insist on fact-checking because you need to provide clear evidences about the claims that you have, and then you can always make a presumption of what you expect from your study. It is just an assumption. Maybe it will be there, maybe it will not be there. And then you can engage these communities with dialogues, maybe through interactive formats and active listening. Thank you.
Thank you quite contemporarily. I would wish to hear a reaction from one of us in the audience, maybe before I make my observation. Yes, just one note.
Because it's a proposal, it's at proposal level.
You will enrich it so that it can give you better results. But my comment is, anytime you mention about gender, whatever thing you want to do with it, and you mention women alone, you may not get the results that are intended. Mention gender, mention men. Mention men and women. That in the results they were both. Okay. But in the diagrammatic presentation, you have just quoted women, but it's okay, the approach. Then the topic itself is mixed up, you check it further.
Thank you for the observation. We are building each other. Anyone else with some reaction?
Okay, you had given us an opportunity that we'll ask questions after the last presenter. And I had kept my question for esteemed lady Mary Claret, who presented the issue about prison visitation and highlighted quite an emotive area of conjugal right during prison visitation. I would like her to explore more, especially on the burden that the government will carry should we allow conjugal rights in prison, putting in consideration that with conjugal rights comes children who will take care of those special mothers in prison. And if the visitation were with women visiting their husbands in prison, then the burden goes back home. I think she needs to expand more on that.
Thank you so much. And, I didn't expect such a question. So, in terms of bearing the burden, so the essence of enabling visitation is to make sure that that social bond is not lost. So now when children come about in the process of consummating or conjugating while in prison, so most of the time, if the woman is in prison, most of the time while they do, there's